why do you believe that it's important for every music therapist to have some sort of foundational understanding of trauma-informed care?
Because it provides a context and a framework for everything you do in your therapeutic practice. And I look at it like if it's a lens, right? It's like, these are my trauma glasses. So now here they are. I'm viewing everything through this lens of being trauma informed. And that does it. There's no prescription that I can write. There's no checklist that I can give to say, oh, if you check these boxes, then you're trauma informed, right? It's this idea that there is what are the 3 R's? There's recognition, there's realization, recognition, and response. There's the realization that it exists, the recognition, I think I have those right, the recognition of how it affects those we serve and those around us, including ourselves. And then there's the response to that. So how do we set up our life, essentially? How do we set up our practice to make sure that we're responding in a way that people feel supported and safe? Right now, there is a collective trauma experience globally that is happening. So whereas, a year ago, I might have said, I can look at the ACE study, and the ACE study is something that we'll go into in the course, and it's the study that tells us about adverse childhood experiences and says that at least, according to, if we extrapolate the data from that study, we can say at least 2/3 of us have had at least one adverse childhood experience. Mm. And adverse childhood experiences are correlated with other negative health effects. So at-risk behaviors, alcoholism, drug addiction, but it can also then escalate to things like autoimmune disorders, cardiac issues, and sometimes early death. So that was what they wanted to study, was the felt health effects of trauma. So a year ago, I could have said, we can reasonably assume that 2/3 of us have had one adverse childhood experience. So this is something that we need to be aware of, because in any given session, we would have probably that amount. We don't have to wonder about the experience because we are collectively going through this.
Yeah.
It's affecting people differently, and there are varying degrees of turmoil, but everyone in some way has been affected by this. But it's this idea of behaviors and ideologies being passed down from generation to generation. And there is even research that is suggesting that because we know that trauma can change the structures of the brain and affect the neurobiological development of people, that trauma can actually imprint on our DNA and be passed down. When we can recognize racism and systemic oppression and white supremacy as trauma, to not do so is to not be trauma informed. And so in that light of being trauma informed, it is imperative that we actively and intentionally dismantle the systems, structures, ideologies, and policies that perpetuate racism and white supremacy.